Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Talha Parkar and in this video we will be working with uh, parameters, and we will be looking at a specific use case within the parameters, that is the top n customers in our case right now. It can be anything, top subcategories, regions, etc. Since customer is the largest field that I have with the maximum number of rows, that is what I'm going to be looking at right now. So let me just save the title. So essentially what a parameter is, so if you want to understand that, we go to the Tableau website and we'll have a look at the official definition of what a parameter is. So a parameter is a workbook variable such as a number, a date, or a string that can replace a constant value in a calculation, filter, or a reference line. So one thing to remember here is that, so once you create a parameter, essentially it is applicable through, you can use it throughout the entire workbook, so you don't need to create separate parameters for each individual worksheet. Apart from that, a parameter can be a integer, it can be a string, it can be a date, it can be a boolean value, it can be anything. It can be in the form of a text box, in the form of a drop down, or in the form of a slicer as well. And to use a parameter, you have to wire it with something. You cannot use it individually. So just creating a parameter and adding it to your sheet won't do anything. You will have to link it with a calculation or a filter in order for the parameter to work. So if you look at the example that is mentioned here, so it says that you can create a calculated field that returns true if sales is greater than 500,000, otherwise returns false. So now for this, what you can do is you can create a parameter wherein you give the end user, the option of changing the value. So let's say someone wants to look at a value of 250,000, so they can enter that value and then their view would change according to the value that they have entered. So what we do is we'll get straight to the workbook and we will build parameters on our own, and we will specifically be looking at 3 ways of doing the top n parameters. So let's look at the first way. So I click on customer name. So right now in my view I have it's very simple. What I did was I dragged my customer name to my rows and my sales to my columns. So I get this beautiful bar chart. You can add colors if you want, that is totally up to you. So essentially that's not important right now. We'll be looking at parameters. So you right click on the customer name field and you go to filter. Now, like it was mentioned in the website, parameters can be used along with filters as well. So we'll be looking at how to do that. So under filter there's an option for top, which is the specific thing that we're looking for right now. So under top you can look at the bottom 10 or the top 10, and you have the option to set the number of values that you want to see, number of rows maybe that you want to see on the screen when you enter into the parameter by default. So right now it says 10. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to create a specific parameter that gives the end user the option to manually input whatever number of values, whatever number of customers he wants to see. Let's say he wants to see the top 50 customers, the top 100 customers. So we have a unique list of 795 customers. So we will leave that to the end user. Okay, so what I do is I click on this drop down and I go to create a parameter. So this is one way of creating a parameter. So once you click on that, you will see this particular field dialog box open up, this pop up for create parameter. As you can see over here, I'll just name this my top n, which is like the standard naming convention for this. So let's say I want to look at 10, and let's say I want to look at a range of 1 to 100. So now this is something that Tableau has done by default. So what I did was I will just retrace the steps. I clicked on my customer name, right click, I go to filters. Under filters there are 4 options. Right now what is relevant to me is top. I go to by field, I'm going to look at the top. There's an option to look at the bottom as well. I will go to the drop down besides the top field and I'll create a parameter. So now what Tableau does is Tableau knows that this is an integer because we're looking at sales numbers, because if you look over here, the top n will be determined by the sum of total sales, sum of sales. So the current value is set as 10. So when the workbook opens, the value will be the default value. So display format is also this way. You can change that. I mean, you can change that to anything that you want. I'll keep it as default. And the minimum that you can look at is 1, and the maximum that you can look at is 100. So you want to restrict the view to a maximum of 100 customers at a time. So let's say someone wants to look at top 150 customers or top 120 customers, they will not be able to do that. So it has selected range by default. We'll go to these three. We'll go through these three options in a couple of minutes. So when I click on OK, a parameter is created. I'll click on apply. I'll click on OK. So it, like you can see over here, since we had chosen 10 at the bottom left corner, so I have my 10 rows. So you can see the top 10, right? Now what you can do is you can see that the parameter has been created here. Earlier this field was empty, so this parameter pane was empty. So now what I'll do is I'll right click on this parameter. I will click on show parameter. Now because we had set the current value to 10, you can see the default 10. Now since it is a slider, I can change this, you know, as per whatever view I want, whatever number of customers I would like to see. I can have 6, I can have, you know, 50, whatever. So let's set that to 10. No, I cannot type. Okay, so when I set it as a range, I don't think I should be able to type. I'm not sure why not. So yeah, it's a slider basically, so you can use it as a slider. So this was one way of setting up a parameter. Now we'll look at the other way of setting up a parameter. So essentially what we'll do is we will right click and delete this, you know, so that we can create parameter using a different way. So the other option to create a parameter is you go here, you click on this drop down, and you click on create parameter, or the other option is you go to, okay, where is the other option? Yeah, okay, no, so yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm not sure. So yeah, I'm not sure why it's not visible over there. Anyways, you just click on this drop down and you click on create parameter. Now we'll rename it as top n itself. So now we're not going to go to the customer name and, you know, filter it by default, because if you remember, if I go back up a couple of steps, when I had applied this top n filter using the customer name field, my customer name automatically popped up in the filter. So if I edit filter, it shows that, you know, the customer names are being filtered by this top n parameter. Whatever value I input, the data is getting filtered that way. So I'll just drop that out. I'll just delete my parameter and I'll go to this drop down. I'll click on create parameter. I'll rename this as top n. We want this to be an integer, and the current value should be, let's say, 5. We want to look at top 5. Now if you look at these three options that you have over here, so essentially what these three options are is, so all, which is by default right now, gives you a text box essentially. So it'll give you a text box that will allow you to enter the value that you want to see on the screen. So let's say top 50, top 100, top 20, etc. A list would essentially give you a drop down. So I can have 10 here, I can have 20 here, I can have 30 here, I can have 40 here, and I can have 50 here. This will restrict my viewer, the end user of this dashboard, to only look at 10, 20, 30, 40 or 50 by clicking on the drop down. And we have worked with ranges earlier, just a couple of minutes ago. It gives us a slider, sorry, not a slicer, a slider, my bad. So we'll keep this to default as all. I click on OK. I right click on this, I click on show parameter, and I'll just change this from 10 to, let's say, 20. But nothing's happening right now. If you look over here at the bottom left corner, I still have 795 rows which I started with. It is not filtering. So now what I would need to do is essentially wire this parameter within this view. So for that, I'll go to my customer name, I'll go to filter, I'll go to top, I'll go to by field, I'll again go to top, I'll click on this drop down. Now I have the parameter created. I click on the parameter, and when I click on apply, immediately you can see that the parameter has been applied, and I can see only 20 rows, the top 20 customers. You can, you know, filter them out this way, large in the descending order. Okay, So now the third way is wiring the parameter with a calculated field. So to do that, what we'll essentially do is, okay, I'll go ahead and delete this again. We'll recreate this, it'll hardly take a minute. So what we're going to do is, I'll just go back a couple of steps. Yeah, okay. So I don't want it in descending order. I'll tell you in a minute why. So now there are two ways of getting this done. Two ways of getting what done? Of setting up top end parameter. So we've done two ways. I'll show you other two ways. So what you can do is you can set an index. You can index is basically it'll just give me a serial number for all the list of rows. So I'll make this discrete because I want this in my rows pane. So once I click on this, you can see that it gives me a serial number against each customer, and I cannot make this descending right now. So essentially, if I were to use an index in my top end parameter and I were to show top 20, it would show me these top 20. So we look at that as well. So if I were to just no calculated field. So if I go to my create parameter, I go to top n, I go to integer again, I set it as 10. I want to see all values because I want a text box, type in the values. I click on OK. I click on show parameter. Okay, now since this index is a field that we have created, and right now you see like nothing is happening. Why? Because the index field and the parameter are not linked. So you'll have to do a simple calculation. You'll have to create a calculated field. So top end customers, and all you have to say is index, the field that you just created is less than equal to your, you can just drop that in here, top end parameter, whatever value you choose. So once you click on OK, it'll show you the top 20 values, or the top 10 values for that matter. Okay, sorry, I have not added that to the filters, my bad. So I have created this field, top end customers. It's a boolean field because once I drag it to my filters, it'll show me true and false. I click on true, I click on apply, I click on OK, and right now you see that it is showing me the top 10 values. So if I were just to recreate this view with my sales in my columns and my customer name in my rows, and I set this as descending, I know that my topmost customer is Tom Ashbrook, who I do not see anywhere over here. Why is this happening? Because the index does, irrespective of the sum of sales, it just assigns a value to that row. So it is just numbering those rows basically. Okay, so if I were to take out the index, if I were to remove this from the filters, and now if I were to set this as descending, and now if I were to create an index field, a blank field, change it to discrete, and then drop it to my rows, and then drop my top end customers to my true in my filters and select true. Now if you look at this, I'll see Tom Ashbrook, you can check out over here. I'll see Tamara Chand, I'll see Greg Tran, I'll see Christopher Conant, Sean Miller's, Brad Waters, Sean Miller's, Brad Waters. So this is something that you need to be careful with. So instead of doing an index, this is just the way I showed you, because sometimes you need to know multiple ways to do things in Tableau. So instead of an index, because the way to work around an index is for this specific use case, you will have to have your view sorted in the descending order, largest to the smallest sales numbers. Only then will the index work in line with the parameter. Otherwise it won't work correctly, like I showed you previously. So now what I'll do is remove the index. I'll remove this top end customers field. I'll let my parameter be there because it won't make a difference because it is not wired to anything. What I'll do is I'll create a calculated field and I'll call it sales rank. This would be nothing but a ranking of the sum of sales. I click on it's very simple calculation. So rank would essentially, let me just reduce the size so that you can look at the explanation. So returns the standard competition rank for the current row in the partition. Identical values are assigned an identical rank. Use the optional ascending or descending argument to specify ascending or descending order. The default order is descending. So we don't need to assign an order. The default is descending and we would be happy to go with that. So I'll just click on OK. Now what I'll do is I'll drop my, so if I just recreate this view, so I don't want to have it in descending already. I just want to show you how it would work, because like I showed the index, irrespective of the sum of sales, it was, numbering it top to bottom. So once I drop my sales rank in here, so I'll have to change this to discrete because I want it in my rows as a column just before the customer name. So what I do is, once I drag this in to the rows, my data is automatically filtered in descending order, and each customer is given a rank based on the sales that they have contributed to in my business, or the purchases they have done, the value of purchases they have done. So now I'll go back to my, if you remember this field that we created, I'll go back to this field, and instead of an index, I'll take out this index, and what I'll do is I'll drop in my, not my sales, my sales rank. Just hold and drop in. So what I'm saying is, earlier what I said was my index value is less than equal to my top in parameter. Right now what I'm saying is my sales rank is equal to less than equal to my top in parameter. So I'll just show my parameter, and when I choose 10, so it should show me 10. Okay, my bad. Sorry, I don't know why I keep on forgetting this. So once you've created the calculated field, you will need to add it to the context. So what you do is you drop it into the filters, you choose the true values. That's a step that you need to do for the parameter to be, applicable. So once I do that, I see my top 10. And like it was happening with the index, when it was not arranged in a particular order, ascending or descending, it was just in a random alphabetical order in the order of the names, so A, B, C, D in the alphabetical order. It was assigning values, ranking, it was not rank, it was an index. It was assigning serial numbers based on the alphabetical order and not on the rank of, or not on the value of sales. But when I do a sales rank, because of the field that I have created, which is rank sum of sales, if you look at it over here, essentially a very simple calculation. So what that does is it ranks my entire list of customers into, it gives them a ranking basically based on the value of sales that they have, or basically the value of money that they spent in my business, on my business, purchasing things basically. So I can do this, I can make this a 20, hit enter, and I'll have that over here. So another important, so instead of the, you can drag this to colors, you can maybe edit the colors to have orange blue diverging, so the value in the lower side is orange and the value on the higher side is blue. And what you can also do is you can just go to your format options, click on animations, and you can turn on animations and just make this maybe 0.5. So what this does is it just looks really cool. So when I change my parameters, it works as an animation. So when I make this from 40 to 5, so just it looks cool basically, the animation perspective, it looks cool. So this is something that you can if I change it 2 seconds, it'll take some time to load, but I think it should work fine. So I'll do 10. So it basically works as an animation, so you can have that on or off. This was not relevant to the parameters, but I just thought this is a cool tip that you can use in your visualizations. So that's all from my side. So I'll just run through what we did. We looked at 3 ways to create a top end parameter. First was we right clicked on customers, we go to filter, we go to the top field, we go to by field, we go to top or bottom, whatever you want to look at, top n or bottom n, and we'll click on create a parameter. Right now you see that, and we'll just create a parameter. We'll rename it whatever you want to. You can have it as a range, which will be a slider, a list, which will be a list of drop downs that you'll need to assign values, so either 1 or 100. So in this case, what would happen is essentially when I show this parameter, so let's say I click on apply, okay, and let me just disable this parameter. let me just hide it, the previous one. So when I click on this parameter and I show this parameter, let me just remove this from context. So it'll just give me a drop down, so either 1 or either 100 basically. So that is something that you can, I mean, not 1 or 100, you can have like 10, 20, 30 or whatever you want to have in your field. Let me just undo a couple of times. Yeah, I've set my animations to 2 seconds, so it's taking a little bit of time. Yeah, okay, let me just show my top pen again. So yeah, that was one way. The other way was you go to this drop down arrow, you create your parameter, then you come to the customer name, then you go to filter, and then you choose your already created parameter. So what you'll do is, you just, once you've created the parameter, you go to filter, you click on top, you click on by field, and you just select the parameter that you see here that you just created. Another option is you wire it with a calculated field. So let's say an index or a sales rank. So remember, with an index or a sales rank, what you need to do is, for a index, it has to be in a descending or an ascending order. Ascending for the bottom, descending for the top end. I would rather recommend you to go for a rank, unless it is, you set it as descending and you want to just show like top 10, and you don't want to give the person, the end user, the option to filter. So in that case, it is perfectly fine. But if you're giving the end user the option to filter, it should ideally be a sales rank in this kind of a situation. So yeah, essentially this is what I had in mind today. I actually had this query from a friend asking me to explain it to him, so I thought I'll just create a video and just put it out there so that others can also benefit from the same. I mean, there is a lot of content out there on Tableau, so creating this type of content where I explain things, it helps me understand them better. It helps the video, it helps the people who watch the video understand things better if they're a beginner, basically. Because when I started learning Tableau, essentially the videos is what helped me. I mean, I had mentors who guided me, but essentially, I mean, people guide you to an extent. You will have to eventually sit down and get the work done on yourself. You'll have to learn stuff on your own. And I mean, for Tableau, the entire community, the videos on YouTube, they're literally, and the Tableau learning resources, they're literally a gold mine. So I mean, you should definitely, look at the various resources that are available. Hit subscribe on this channel. If you want to look at more content, you can type in the comments what you want me to cover in the next videos. I will try to cover those topics. If I'm not aware of those, if I'm not very well versed with those topics, I'll study them and then I'll make a video. If I'm well versed, I'd like to make a video. So essentially, I keep putting out more content. Thanks for all those who've already subscribed, and thank you for watching the video. Thank you. Bye bye.